Hi people, I'm back again. It's Friday, so guess what? It's Fibro Friday, exactly. And today I'm talking about something again we don't tend to talk a lot about, and that probably will make some people uncomfortable because it has to do with some feminine issues or what are usually perceived as feminine issues, and that's not necessarily the case. But today I'm talking about the correlation between hormones and fibromyalgia and just general hormones and how they affect our body and the consequences they have for fibromyalgia. And you'll probably be wondering, well, surely that's all that there is to say about it. No. If you were following my fundraiser, you may have heard from me or someone else that actually there are some studies that are starting to come about how hormones and fibromyalgia are related. This all started because originally the vast majority of people with fibromyalgia that the health records had any news of were women usually above the age of 40 who were going usually through menopause or premenopause, so through some form of important hormonal change, and therefore they thought that that must be it. You reach a moment where your hormones say, oh, let's just be crazy now, and therefore that could have potentially triggered fibromyalgia if it was either a pre-existing condition in your genetics or as a result of your hormonal imbalance. But it's not as simple as that, and it seems that hormonal imbalances or hormonal issues in not just women but men can have a strong relationship either with the trigger point of fibromyalgia or with different stages in which fibromyalgia drives us crazy. So, here are we going to discover some of these issues. So, obviously, this is also the reason, in case you didn't know, in case you have missed my previous videos, why it's easier to identify fibromyalgia in women than in men, because hormones in women react and display certain symptoms and signs that are not so obvious in men, like we go our hormonal changes in our teens, and when we get older and we reach menopause are of course a lot more noticeable than those that some men suffer. And that's the reason why it's easier to identify it on us, because the trigger points may be a bit easier, or simply because they can be indicators that something is wrong with us, whilst in men they camouflage a lot of the time. So that's one part of the issue. But they happen in men as well. Men, I don't want to go back to the old stereotype that men have periods too. It's not exactly like that. You do have a cycle, but it doesn't happen in the same way we do, and of course it doesn't involve the whole menstrual cycle, but your hormones go through a cycle. Everything goes through a cycle in our bodies, so it's no surprise. All right, cool. Well, one of the things that I wanted to talk about today is the different types of hormones and the things that could be causing us problems. So there are 5 main hormones here involved that we're talking about. 3 of them are the sex hormones that you may know already from school or whatever, which are estrogen, testosterone, and the one that I always struggle to say, which is progesterone. Progesterone. I actually had to write it down because I'm fibrophobe reading today and I'm having issues with some word things like you see right now. But yeah, progesterone. So those are the things that control our sexual inhibitors. For women, it is things like menstruation as well, lactation, if you are having children, and things like that. So there is a relation as well when fibromyalgia occurs in younger women, that it is sometimes associated with very severe and violent hormonal changes throughout your teens, which perhaps mixed with stress or with some traumatic experiences triggered your hormones to react very violently or to go just so crazy that they cause the chain effect that leads you into developing fibromyalgia, or if you already had it in your genetic code, it triggers it. And it can happen as well a lot to women who've just had kids, so just after postpartum, not necessarily something like postpartum trauma or postpartum depression, but simply your hormones are still trying to regulate themselves, and again, because your body is trying to adjust all of these very complicated things, it has a big fit, and as a consequence fibromyalgia seems to sometimes trigger them as well. So it's a big deal. We still don't fully understand why this happens or how it happens, but it's a factor that we need to have into consideration. And there is many things in our body, not just hormones but substances and whatnot, so it's just difficult to keep track of them. But remember that if something like serotonin has a big impact in fibromyalgia, not from a mental health perspective, but just from a physical perspective, and that is because the biggest reservoir of serotonin is in our stomach lining, then imagine how everything else can react, right? Well, there are two other hormones that people often tend to forget about that have a very big impact into our bodies, but also particularly for people with fibromyalgia, which are cortisol and thyroxine. Sorry. So cortisol, you may know about it because you may see it, in things about your diet and whatnot. But cortisol is the hormone that allows you to regulate stress. Essentially, it's produced by your adrenals. So when you're under stress or things like that, your glands go like, something's happened, and cortisol helps you balance the reaction. Um, it also helps you regulate things like your metabolism, blood sugar, and things like that. So it's very important to keep some very crucial aspects of our daily life management in check. So if you have problems regulating your cortisol, it will affect your fibromyalgia because your reactions will be much more heightened to certain things and you won't have a lot of control over them. The other one, which is thyroxine, it's produced by the thyroid. The thyroid, in case you don't know, is somehow around here, is a gland in this area. And again, it seems that it affects a lot of women a lot more than men, but it's not true. Men also get affected by thyroid problems, whether it's hyperthyroidism or hypothyroidism, which is either an enhanced thyroid reaction or an underdeveloped thyroid reaction. And thyroxine is very important because it helps us develop and control our metabolism. That may be the reason why you suddenly lose a lot of weight or why you suddenly gain a lot of weight, because your metabolism is not processing things fast enough. But also for people with fibromyalgia, thyroxine and the thyroid functions are very important because they help us regulate heat and cold. Is our thermostat, essentially. That's the reason why, for example, women with hyperthyroidism, and particularly women who are in menopause or just with thyroid problems, may experience a lot of hot flashes and just sudden air that comes out of nowhere and makes you feel like you're gonna roast and die, alive. That's why, and that's how it happens. So, message for anyone listening at home: if you've ever had problems with hormones, any of these or any of these markers that I've mentioned, like hot flashes, like metabolism issues that you don't really know where they come from, I really think you should go and check with your doctor, because whether it's just hormones alone messing you up, which are quite nasty, or whether there is some factors that link you to fibromyalgia, the earlier that you catch it, the better. If you have fibromyalgia and you're experiencing some of these symptoms, they are not necessarily the cause of fibromyalgia, so go and make sure that your hormones are in check. It's it's something that particularly as well for women, if you are taking anti-conceptive pill, that can have a severe impact in the amount of estrogen that you have, and not just how you have it, but how your body processes it. And I mean, at the end of the day, what that pill is telling you is just sending messages. Remember that messages of any type, just like pain, are just information that your brain is processing. So at the end of the day, anything that the brain needs to process to understand how it's affecting you could have a negative or a positive effect on your fibromyalgia. So just make sure that if you're taking anything like that, that you are obviously checking with your doctor if you are not clear, or if this is not something that has been addressed by your health plan or anything like that beforehand. Now, the other reason why I want to talk about hormones and fibromyalgia today is because, and I insist, it's not talked a lot about, is how our period, our menstrual cycle, affects women with fibromyalgia. I mean, you may be a lucky person somewhere where it doesn't have any impact whatsoever on you, and if that's the case, I'm happy for you. But I don't think I know a single woman with fibromyalgia that when it comes to their time of the month, they doesn't matter how on top they are on their illness, whether they're on medication or not, they have the worst time. And it's not just because of your period; it's because the hormonal imbalance, but also because of the effect that your period has on your body. I mean, our ovaries are close to one of the biggest pain, well, not just pain, but nerve endings in the body, which is the area of the coccyx, and all of the nerve endings that we have there. So of course, the excess heat that it generates, the excess pain that you are suffering, your bloating, your skin, everything will just literally react more than any other time. So it's perfectly normal, particularly if you suffer as well from a vasovagal syndrome, which is something that I have, which is a heightened response of one of the central nerves, that when things like that happen gets really, really aggravated, and then it sends a message to the brain essentially going like, shut it down, shut it down, shut it down. It can be quite horrible. So, it's perfectly normal. So one of the things that I wanted to say is, it's normal. You shouldn't be worried that your period is actually causing you a hell of a lifetime if you have fibromyalgia. Like I said, there is an intrinsic correlation between hormones and fibromyalgia anyway, and not just that, but the enhanced type of sensation that you have in that area is something that your brain is simply not going to be able to ignore. But also, be aware that precisely because of fibromyalgia and because of how this works, there may be things that you can do to make it better, or there may be certain things that you're taking that could be making it worse, whether it's to control the hormones or to control the pain. Just make sure that if you're having any problems in that area, you go and check with your doctor, because it can be quite serious and you never know. It's unfortunately the price that we pay to be able to, give life, apparently. So I just wanted to put it out there. Also, there are things that you can do at home. They may be able to help you. I really, really, really recommend. I think I've mentioned this before for other reasons, but I have a koala hot water bottle, which is essentially a small hot water bottle. It's like maybe this big. It's not much bigger really than my cell phone, and it comes with like a sleeve that has the shape of a koala, and it has like some long arms that you can sort of attach with velcro, so it sits on your belly or on your lower abdomen, and it just goes with you, it just moves with you, and the heat will really help your period pain, but also it will help that entire area to calm down, because as you're essentially providing an external source of heat without hurting yourself and without burning your skin, of course, as you are providing that extra source of heat, your nerves will calm down. Your hormones will also not have to worry about that self-regulation issue that you may have with the temperature, and it will really help things settle. It can also work if your pain sort of reflects back rather than at the front, and you have problems in the area of your kidneys. The same, just turn it around and put it there, and it will really help. But again, these are key areas where the fibromyalgia will get angry with you, and it's perfectly normal. Just make sure that you have the right tools around to take care of it. I would also recommend that if you have these issues, you apply some ibuprofen gel directly to the lower back area, the lumbars, and even the sort of hip area, where your hip bone is, and it starts prodding in. That's roughly where your ovaries are. So just around that area, it should help, hopefully, stretch things and calm them down. And this is something very important and potentially useful for anyone suffering problems, not just menstrual problems, but any type of hormonal problems if you're a woman and if you have fibromyalgia. I cannot emphasize enough. Try doing some pelvic floor exercises, and if you can and have the opportunity to speak with a healthcare practitioner of any kind about your pelvic health care, it's very important, because the problem essentially is that between our hip and our pelvis, it's just muscle. All of that is just tied together by muscle, and muscle is what hurts. It's not bones. Bones don't hurt. It's the muscle, because that's where all of our nerves are connected, and that's what envelops them. So the stronger and more resilient that your muscle is, the easier that you will be able to cope with the pain, and the easier that you may be able to then have not to worry about other issues that can come with age or fibromyalgia, which are not a topic for today, but for tomorrow, because I'm running out of time again. But yes, check about your pelvic health. Go and speak to your doctor if you have any of these hormonal issues or symptoms, whether you're a woman or a man. And just don't be afraid of talking about it. It's perfectly normal. And just because people get grossed out about it because they don't understand it, it's not your problem. Take care and see you on the next one. Bye.